A while ago, we did a video here on the channel about Marcher, an alternative world, sort of World War I Dieselpunk thing. And we got to see their Kickstarter do extremely well, which was fantastic to see. In fact, it's done so well that they've been able to expand into some really new cool things.
That's right, they have a new starter set that has just come out in plastic, which is awesome. So we're gonna check those out. They're also including the British Commonwealth, which is Aussies.
That's us! It's tabletop time. Pah! This is Marcher, Empires at War by Golden Dragon Games, and they have sponsored this video. But we've worked with Marcher going way back. They actually sculpt a bunch of the models for our Kickstarter campaigns. In fact, almost every model for the Kindred of the Abyss faction has been sculpted by Golden Dragon Games. We've explored Marcher a little bit on the channel before. We've got two videos, one talking about the world and one talking about how to play. But I can't assume you've watched that, so I'll give you a bit of an overview of what it is. Basically, Marcher is a Dieselpunk alternative war game set in 1938. While a lot of the visual aesthetic and technology is kind of weird World War II, from my perspective, a lot of the inspiration is drawn from the wacky interwar period of technology, and the vibes behind the game really feel like the prelude to World War I. In this alternate universe, a new resource was discovered that allowed people to control gravity, and it basically springboarded their industrial revolution 100 years earlier. They managed to avoid the First World War, and it is in 1938, the year the game is set, that the First World War really breaks out. The factions and geography of the world are all different, and it's really interesting to see. Without the assassination of the Archduke and the political upheaval that World War I caused, the world is a very different place. But not only that, you've also got space colonies to throw in the mix. There are a whole bunch of factions that capture aesthetics we're all familiar with from World War II. The Holy Roman Empire has evocative designs based off German equipment in World War II, and the USA has glorious things such as this Sherman lookalike over here, which I just think is such a gorgeous tank. That's the setting, but how does it play? Well, the game is completely free. The rules are available to download, and they're constantly being updated as Marcher is an indie game. It's a D10 based system, with the goal being to create something where there was a little bit more difference between the units. To give an example, like Warhammer, it's pretty hard to differentiate between a veteran guardsman and a space marine if they're rolling on the same number. And that's largely because you only have 6 numbers to work through with a D6 system. So the D10 system just stretches everything out and allows for a little bit more nuance between the units. Some of its other key features that I absolutely love is its alternate activation, which means you, me, you, me, you, me, which I think is just the way to make games these days. Much more dynamic and involving, but also has some cool features such as the ability to deploy and destroy terrain. So you can have like combat engineers that lay out tank traps and minefields on the battlefield, and they actually place down the terrain. But you can also destroy terrain, which means the terrain actually becomes part of the game. The game is constantly evolving, with patron members of Golden Dragon being given updates of models every month for the various factions of the world, and new factions get added. And one of the newest factions is the faction we're going to be painting today, and it's one of the things we're really excited about. And that is the Imperial Protectorate of Great Britain, because of course, Australia is a Commonwealth nation and part of the Protectorate of Great Britain, which means we finally get Aussies. And I'm not sure if it was always the plan or if my nagging Jackson to sculpt them had any impact. Today we have a bunch of slouched hat ANZACs to paint. So if you'd like to know more about the setting of Marcher and also how it's played, I thoroughly recommend you check out the other videos. We'll put them up in the cards up here so you can go and have a long look. But that's enough background. Let's start doing some hobby.
Building these models was really, really cool. I really liked and appreciated the design choices for the Australians here. They're basically wearing the short shorts that they were sort of known for wearing in the desert. Australians have a bit of a tendency in the wars for hacking apart their uniform, whether it's in Africa or New Guinea or wherever. They just sort of take the trousers off and basically stuck with the really short builder's shorts. And so you can see here reflected that all these models actually basically have shorts and these really big, thick woolen socks sticking out of the tops of their shoes, which I absolutely adore. It's fantastic. And of course, you've got the iconic Australian slouchy hat. Also, a surprisingly shovel-shaped chins and facial hair abounds. You know, you got the strong mustaches and everything. Mustache. So I'm gonna have a lot of fun painting these. And when it comes to painting miniatures, specifically for me, it's really important to ground the models in whatever environment that they're going to be in. In this case, we've decided to go for the desert. So everything's going to be very stark. It's going to be fairly desaturated and we're going to have lots of bright colors. So I'm going to start off by going for a brown to be my darkest tones here. Then I'm going to continue by adding a few bounce lights just for some interest and also to make further tones more bright on top, which of course, you're in the desert, you're going to have stark highlights on top of you. So it makes sense to prepare yourself that way. Now, around this time frame, theoretically, comparing our own timelines, Australians were pretty damn white. Like, not a lot of tanning culture yet, so everyone's, you know, still very pale, except I found that one of these models, he was very stocky. He had very wide cheekbones and this posture. He's sort of like carrying the gun, but he's carrying the gun like this. So, you know, he's kind of flexing. And I decided that he really reminded me of a New Zealander that I used to know, I used to work with. And he was this amazingly kind, giant gym junkie. He was a fantastic guy. He was a New Zealander, he was Maori. So he had this wonderful skin tone. And I've decided that I'm going to make a little New Zealander Maori as part of this squad here. One, be fun. Two, sort of change things up and have a bit of variance in the skin tones in the squad here. And so for him, I'm going to start with a bit more of a ruddy purple and then end up with a more bronzed yellow. All in all, I'm really happy with that one turned out. So we're just going to continue and paint dirty khaki. It's a very yellow khaki that the Australians used in the desert. So you can see we're going to build this up slowly using the darker browns that will later just be the leathers everywhere. And of course the hat on top of the slouchy, that's a fairly darker brown as well. So it's going to stay there as well. But one touch I do want to do towards the end here, since so many of these guys have facial hair. So I'm going to paint hairs on their arms, give them really nice gorilla arms. So with a fine brush and some watered down brown paint, I'm just going to go over and make some slightly curved lines, which will give the sort of indication that, you know, there's some, you know, fairly long hair there. It's a simple effect, but it works out really well. It's an old comic trick that I know, namely the Foot Trot Flats comics, which is also done by a New Zealander. So there you go. All right, so the final touches to the leather and the uniform are all done, and it's time to work on the bases. And since this is going to be in the desert, it's going to be pretty basic, but we still need to sell the effect. So I'm going to use some texture paste and then absolutely drown this in a pigment, same pigment that we're using to do all the vehicles. So everything's sort of tied together in the end. And that's my part done. It's time to see what Jen's been painting. And that's the infantry done, so I think it's time to go and look at the vehicles.
Okay, I know green is banned, but I have to do it. We've got ANZACs now, I have to do green and gold. Green and gold are the Aussie colors, and we have ANZACs, and I love them. We get to add them to our little battlefield. We've got the piece de la resistance, the main focus of the video, still to come, but it's great to get these diggers off the shelf, and they really look completely different. It shows like so many diverse vibes. It's something I kind of love about it. I mean, back when I used to be hype about Warhammer as a little kid, Imperial Guard regiments made me so excited. So there's something about seeing just a bunch of little dudes, regular guys that are like different. It's just super exciting. I mean, look at that bloody slouchy. It's beautiful. So while we're pumped about the British stuff and the ANZACs that come alongside them, that's not the only new thing happening for Marcher. And in fact, the reason we're making this video is to tell you about their Kickstarter campaign, which has just successfully concluded, but late pledges are available. And why is this exciting and special? Well, they're an indie game company that have done 2 Kickstarters. The first one was to produce plastic kits for the USA. They made 3 plastic kits. It was about a year ago, and they're pretty much rolling off the production line now. And this second campaign, which is available for late backing, is a 2-player starter box, where the entire contents of the box are all in plastic. The new starter box is called the Battle of the Marne, and it will have 2 hardcover rulebooks, a set of dice from Baron of Dice, a set of deployable terrain, 48 USA models that will get you a list of over 1,000 points, as well as 36 Holy Roman Empire models that will do the same. That's enough to play a full army of both sides. It's over $400 worth of stuff for only $200, so think of this as like your giant start collecting everything you need for you and a friend to be playing this game. You go check it out over on their Game Pound because you can late back right now. I think in this era globally, I've seen a lot of weird negativity around people who doomsay. Basically, anytime someone tries to do something cool or interesting, they're like, oh yeah, that won't be around in a while. Well, there's a really good way to keep these things around. It's to try them. If you're not happy with what you're playing, try new games. If you want to paint new models, you can grab new models. My joy in the hobby has truly exploded in the last 1.5 to 2 years. years when I stopped being bound to this idea that I only played one game, and I spread my wings and started playing a whole bunch of stuff, and it's been awesome. Try out Marcher, go check out their models, check out the campaign, but you could also join their Patreon. If you're a 3D printer, all of their models are available on their My Mini Factory. You get a discount for being their patron. It's all there. Go have a look. But now it is time for us to paint what we're really excited about. That's drop pods with tanks in them, and we're really excited to bring them to life.
So when it comes to these projects where we get to check out a new range of miniatures, I don't often get to do the vehicles, and this time around I do, and I'm pretty excited to be trying something a little bit different and kind of flexing my skills a little bit. So for this release, we've printed up 2 of these really cool looking drop pods and one of these really adorable, cute little tanks. I know most of you probably won't think that this tank is adorable, but for some reason I find it kind of small and miniature and it just looks really cute to me. And these have printed up really nicely and fit together like a dream. It's also worth noting that with these drop pods, the interior is also designed as well. So you can decide if you want to leave the doors open or if you want to close them up. And in one of our drop pods, we've decided to leave one of these open so you can see what's happening inside. Aesthetically, I really like the way that these drop pods look. I think it's really hard to do a mixture of futuristic and history and try to make it look like something. You don't want it to look too modern, but it's something that exists in the future. But you also need it to fit within the realms and the design principles that you have within the history that you're trying to represent. I think these drop pods have done a really good job of it. They're a bit clunky and big, which is exactly the aesthetic I would picture, which technology hasn't gotten to that minimalization sort of point. Everything is really big and also is there for a purpose. So I think the design of these drop pods are really cool and also fit really well into the aesthetic of Marcher. Now, I won't lie, whenever I think about painting up any sort of vehicle, I have to spray it silver. I think at the end of the day, it's just way easier for me to just start with a base coat of silver, which is exactly what I did here with an undercoat of black to make sure that silver stands out nice and shiny. Of course, we had already picked out the color scheme that we were going to use for this army, so I got to use a lot of different khaki colors on top to give it a nice paint job. However, I can't understate the importance of using pigment powders. Now, I have been asked by a few different people just randomly how pigments work and when you should use them. And I have to admit, I've only used them a handful of times, but I do think that they look really good aesthetically. So for these drop pods, for example, these need to look like they're entering Earth and have been burnt to an absolute crisp. To get this sort of effect, all I had to do was absolutely smash on a ton of black pigment powder and try to get into all of those little nooks and crannies, and then spray on a thin layer of airbrush thinner on top. We use a little atomizer bottle just to make sure it sprays out evenly and also dries thinly so you can do multiple coats. And speaking of multiple coats, that's exactly what I did. Go in multiple times with that black to really make sure this thing was charred like a charcoal chicken. Again, spraying that thinner on top to make sure it all sets as much as possible, because the last thing you want to be doing is handling this thing and end up with the charcoal on your hands. And it's crazy to look at the before and after and see how much the pigment powder just sells this design completely. I really love the way that it's turned out, and I think that it looks like it's gone through absolute hell, which is exactly what we want. Moving on to the cute little adorable tank. Again, I did this exactly the same as the drop pods, spraying it up silver and then painting the khaki color on top. Dave came in and added some cute little design features as well, including naming the tank appropriately Australian. Now, because the tank is obviously not entering orbit, but rather going through the sands of the Australian desert, we decided to use some different pigment powders to sell this look, instead opting for more yellows and ochres to smash into the tracks of this tank. Again, the same method was applied, but this time I worked my way up in a gradient. So using those darker yellows and ochres to start with, spraying on a layer of airbrush thinner, and then working my way up into an almost white powder on the very edges. The placement of these pigment powders is really important as well. If you're not too sure, it's always good to look up reference images on what you're trying to replicate. I knew from personal experience, having been to a tank place recently, that a lot of the mud and debris really does just get caked into those tracks, and it doesn't end up a whole lot on top. However, it does tend to dry a little bit lighter as it goes towards the top, so that's where adding in that final white touch was necessary to sell the look. So if you've never used pigment powders before, I highly recommend giving them a shot, especially on vehicles and tanks and that sort of thing, because it really can change the way your models look completely. In this case, I think that they look absolutely awesome. That's pretty much it from me, so let's head over to Murray and let's head over to Murray, who's just over here, and see what he's been up to.
Now, one of these drop pods is completely sealed up because we wanted to imagine it coming down and landing on the surface of the planet. So why not just reenact that? So I grabbed some wire to set up a simple stand between two of the turbines on each side. Then I grabbed a bag of cotton wool and starting where it's going to attach to the engines, make a large clump and then sort of drag it down. I'm really using footage of space shuttles taking off from NASA and that sort of stuff as my inspiration here. Except this is gonna be a lot dirtier. There's gonna be a lot more dirty, grimy blacks in this smoke. Airbrushes are a great way to make simple effects like this, and I'm gonna start with the brightest, which is the yellow. And then I'm gonna make sure I go further than I want to with the yellow, because I'm gonna blend back in with the red, which is the next. This will get a nice transition of yellow, orange, down to the red, and then I'm gonna go all over the bottom, just from a nice zenithal with black. This is gonna make everything look like it's tinged with oily smoke, and then there's just gonna be a little bit of the white wool still visible underneath. And there we have it, a drop pod landing. Instantly, this creates so much more narrative and makes the whole project just a bit more fun. What do you think? Let us know. But in the meantime, I think it's time for some reveals.
All right, this is awesome. We can't wait to show you the reveals. But before we do, I just wanted to squeeze something in. Matcha is an indie game and they do fun indie stuff that you don't often see the big companies do. So I just wanted to let you know they have a painting competition starting soon. And if you paint some of their models, just the 3D prints or whatever you've got at hand and enter it, they've got loads of prizes. They're giving away vouchers for My Mini Factory for the top 3 entries for each round. And the winner of each round gets an item of merch, which is really fun. I know everyone out there, hobbyists, love painting competitions. So maybe the best way, if you've got a 3D printer to see if you like Matcha, is to grab your favorite mini off their My Mini Factory and maybe enter a painting competition. All right, let's take a look at our stuff.
Tabletop Time is kept going by our lovely patrons, and the latest patrons to join our crew are Lieutenant Fusion, Misunderstood Tim, KTYH, I'm me, Trevor Wright, and Crooked. If you'd like to join up, get access to behind the scenes videos, some extended cuts, monthly mini review, and a recent thing we've started doing, which is sharing 3D files of the projects we work on, please consider joining. Links are in the description. And also, as a little fun tidbit, I've just been talking to Jackson in the final stages of editing this video, and he's told me that no one knows these colonial Aussie slouch hat wearing troopers are coming. This is like a shadow drop that's going alongside these minis. So patrons of Golden Dragon Games, that's super hype, and I hope to see your creations with these Commonwealth troopers soon.
Well, that was cool.
Ta-da!
Yay!
Did you enjoy that, guys?
Did.
I liked painting Australians. That was fun.
Yeah, no, that's always
For
a fun
change.
novelty. So yeah, it's fun to, you know, I don't know, see yourself represented in the thing.
Yay.
Well, the Brits in Matcha cover pretty much all the Commonwealth countries and some others. So there's a bunch more, and of course the Tommy bots. And it's cool that there's all these different heads that you can put on the soldiers and make them all look different. But I'm really excited because there's slouchies. It's really cool. Support indie games, small game development. Whether or not you want to collect your Matcha minis to play Matcha or use them as proxies for other games, the late backing is available. So make sure you go down to the link in the description, check out the game found, because you'll be able to get that box packed full of plastic minis, which is something people love. So get some plastics, easy to build, and use them for Matcha, preferably. But if you just want to use them for other games, I mean, hell yeah, why not? One-page rules, Hammer. You could use it as like an IG regimen.
Oh my God, he said the word. How could he?
Warhammer. That's what it sounded like I said.
We're just going to gloss past that. But there you have it. Clip that one.
Yeah, you could use them as like an IG regimen if you wanted, or you could use them as, of course, OPR army.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks to Jackson and everyone over at
Yeah.
Golden Dragon Games.
Thanks
Yeah.
for continuing to support
supporting
us.
Yeah.
And be friends of the channel. And hopefully we can help you out, and you can help us out, and everyone gets along.
I feel like getting plastics in your miniatures as well is such a big boy, like a big.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely
step.
feels like in the time that we've had a working relationship with Golden Dragon Games, we were the big kids, and then now they're the big kids.
Yeah,
I
they're
feel
the
as soon as they got plastic kits, I'm
Yeah.
like, you're like real people now, and we're just YouTubers, and you're like a real company, and that's cool.
So let's admit it, YouTubers aren't real people.
That's true. YouTuber moment. You can...